the goal was always to create a big business. So I knew that to have a successful business, I'd need to have the foundations. And one of the main pillars of the foundations is qualifications. It's being credible, and qualifications enable you to be credible before time gives you that credibility. So
welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods. Hello, this is Cynthia Chaplin, and today I am so happy to welcome Jessica Summer to Voices. Jessica's in North London, and she started her professional life in hospitality and PR and real estate. And she is now the proud owner of Mouse Grape, which is a luxury online cheese and wine business. And she opened her first bricks and mortar shop in November of 2024. She was a finalist for Harper's Drinks 30 Under 30, the winner of Drinks Business Social Media Campaign of the Year for 2024, finalist for the IWSC Emerging Talent in Wine and Food, and a lot of other great awards have been coming your way. So thanks for making time for us today, Jessica. Welcome to Voices.
Oh, you're so welcome, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here and to chat with you today.
Great. Well, the obvious first question in all of this is, how did you go from estate agent to cheese and wine guru? I'm sure a lot of people in the property business drink wine and eat cheese, but I don't see many of them rushing out to start up a business. So what was the critical moment for you where you decided this is what I'm going to do next?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I worked in property. I was working in a family lettings business, like residential property, and I wanted to get more experience working in the industry, just working for another company. So I started a new job for a central London letting agency, and my job started on March the 9th, 2020. So I lost that job on the 19th. I was only there for 10 days actually before they let me go because of COVID. And 10 days was enough time for me to realise that I would have absolutely hated working there. And it was a blessing in disguise. And it just basically gave me an opportunity to reflect. And it was a really difficult time. I mean, obviously there was lots of uncertainty going on anyway with COVID, but to make the move to leave a family business was really challenging in itself. To then that opportunity to disappear, I was just not in like the best headspace mentally. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time. And one of the podcasts that I loved listening to was the Fern Cotton Happy Place podcast. And she interviews lots of celebrities and different successful people about kind of what's their happy place and mindfulness. And one of the people she was interviewing is a lady called Holly Tucker. And she founded Not on the High Street. And she has an ethos and a book, which is do what you love what you do, creating a lifestyle business. And I was just having a chat with my fiance, and my husband now, I got married earlier this month. And he just said, well, what do you love? What's your thing that you love that you just start a business in? And I just said straight away, cheese and wine. And that's where it started. And he said, what would you call your business? I said, Mouse Grape. And he was like, that's really good. Like, shall we see if it's taken on Companies House and the domain names? And it wasn't. So I bought it then and there. And then I always knew I wanted to have a business. So I think I've always been entrepreneurial anyway. But yeah, it's a come from a passion, a genuine passion and love of cheese and wine. And then obviously because it was COVID, I couldn't get a job in hospitality or in the wine sector because things had slowed down and changed so much. So I started off on Instagram sharing my favourite cheese and wine pairings and recommendations online, whilst also studying for my qualifications. So doing my WSET up to level 3 and then the same in cheese as well.
Well, it's amazing. I love how, first of all, congratulations on your wedding.
Oh, thank you.
But there are so many great stories that start with, and then there was COVID. And so I had to find something else to do, myself included. So it's really nice to meet people who, COVID was an inspirational time rather than a really depressing or, very sad time. So good for you for taking that moment to do something positive and proactive. So you just basically started out with your Instagram account, in 2020, and everybody was kind of, in the in the dark days of COVID. So what happened on social media that eventually made you pivot into the online business, because it kind of blew up for you?
Yeah, I think for me, the goal was always to have a business, and the Instagram was a vessel to get further along. So it was a space for me to do more research, to make connections, to do market research, and to learn. And it just gave me time to really hone in on my USP. And my kind of niche within the wine world is pairings with cheese. So I'm a cheesemonger and I'm a sommelier, so that's quite a niche, and that's how it develops really from there. And I think in talking about and communicating about cheese and wine, then I got such a deeper understanding of it as well. And I just originally it started off with hampers, Mouse and Grape. So I started by putting together a curated cheese and wine hampers together, because I noticed that though there are lots of places you can buy cheese and wine hampers from, they're not thoughtfully paired. You might have two great wines and then four very average wax coated cheeses, or vice versa. And that was where I thought, oh, this is something that I could do really well. And it's all that thoughtful curation. Everything is there for a reason and put together. So I started selling hampers, and I built a website and did my photography. And my A level in photography came in very useful during that time. And then I launched the business officially on the 6th of December 2021. Um, and then from there, I actually, that Christmas was the first Christmas that I'd ever cut and wrapped cheese. And though I had got experience at a wine shop in the run up to that, I didn't have much cheese experience. And that first Christmas taught me that I really needed cheese experience. So I then got a job working for La Fromagerie, which are based in Marylebone. And I worked there for 10 months as a cheesemonger, whilst building the online presence and the online business, and then started hosting tasting events as well. So I hosted my first corporate tasting event in March 2022.
So who are your clients now? I mean, how did it how did the online business, because it's an e-commerce business online,
Yeah.
how did people find you? How did you get going? How have you gotten corporate clients? What's your client base like now online?
Yeah, it's a great question, because e-commerce is notoriously difficult. There's so much competition. There's a lot of noise online, and I think the things that set me apart was the brand and the branding of what I was doing. I think having a focus on SEO and trying to think of economical ways to get yourself seen online and through the website. I think having a small Instagram presence helped, because people, through word of mouth recommendation, people were really supportive as well. I invested in PR very early on because I've got a background in PR, so I understand it. So I worked with a PR company to get Mouse and Grape into recommendation lists, like on the Independent, in the Express. So very early on, we had really good media coverage. Um, and then I think a lot of it was through word of mouth, but then also I I got lots of photo evidence. So especially when I was first started hosting those corporate events, it was through a friend of a friend actually that I ended up hosting my first event, and I got lots of great photos from that, which I then shared online, and then slowly through, I mean, a mixture of networking, through becoming I guess a person who is considered to be an industry expert in their field, you then attract more business. So I think it's over time really, and I know that's quite an annoying thing to say, but it does. You've got to do everything
Yeah, it's a
really.
really honest thing to say, and especially because you were kind of a one woman band.
Mm,
I like the fact that you didn't rely on your own PR skills. You invested, you were doing everything else yourself, and you invested in external things in a really wise and strategic way. So
thank you very much. I think things changed with the hampers when I invested in professional photography. That was a that was a shift. And then yeah, I think it's a really good example because this week actually I just had a corporate tasting event inquiry come through, and this is for in central London, and it's for a group of 35 people at a package for like I think it's like £65 a head or something. But this is all on my website now, so people can literally just email me and say, "Oh, we'd like to do this on this date. Can you do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But that was never the case when I first started. Like every single event, I really had to work hard to win that business. And it was really challenging at the start because you've almost got to be you've got to have belief in yourself, and you've got to be confident even though you necessarily haven't done it before.
Exactly. I think it's the old fake it till you make it minute. And I think that going back to what you said at the beginning, do what you love and love what you do, um, probably drove a lot of that, because it's a lot easier to put in 20 hours a day, starting up a business if it's something you really love than if it's something you don't really care about. So I'm really happy to hear that. And I want to sort of cycle back a minute, because you mentioned that in the midst of all of this, building the business, building the online, building the events, you decided to sort of dive headfirst into expanding your knowledge and your expertise. And you worked in the wine shop. You did your, level 1, 2, and 3 with WSET. Um, you got your Academy of Cheese level 2. I have to say, I didn't even know there was such a thing until I started looking into what you've done.
There is, it's great.
Yeah.
If anyone listening loves cheese, look up the Academy of Cheese because they're
Well,
brilliant.
all these things, food safety level 3 training, all kinds of things. You were supported by the Prince's Trust, which I want to ask you about. So I lived in England for 17 years, so it's lots of fun for me to talk to people who are in the UK, because some of these things, Fern Cotton, for anybody who's listening, is a great person to follow and to look up. She's a UK personality with a good heart, and not on the high street, one of my favorite e-commerce shops for gifts. I have 4 daughters. I have spent a lot of money at not on the high street. But the Prince's Trust is also really interesting. We know that wine and probably cheese education is not cheap. So getting some sponsorship, is helpful. It's interesting because there's a big conversation at the moment in the wine sector, for sure, that traditional wine education is a bit passé. So what made you decide to do all of this studying? Because it's very time consuming. I'm a WSET educator. I know how long it takes you to.
Yeah.
And how did the Prince's Trust enterprise program help you out? So why did you start taking formal classes, and where did you get support for that?
Yeah, so for me, the goal was always to create a big business. So I knew that to have a successful business, I'd need to have the foundations. And one of the main pillars of the foundations is qualifications. It's being credible, and qualifications enable you to be credible before time gives you that credibility. So it's almost like a quick way, I think, of, well, not quick because it's time consuming. You got to do the work, but it's a way for people to trust you to get the business in saying, oh, I've got this qualification. I know what I'm talking about. So I think for me it was a non-negotiable. I had to have the qualifications and that knowledge to be able to give the luxury high-end service, because that's another thing as well. Mouse and Grape, it's a luxury brand, it's high end. I charge premium prices. And to be able to charge those premium prices, you have to gain that trust.
You have
And so
no
that was
idea how happy this makes me, because my big problem with people coming into the wine world post COVID, everyone suddenly became a wine influencer, and everyone suddenly became a wine expert, quote unquote. Basically, if you had a bikini and a glass of wine and a good photographer, you were a wine expert. So I'm very happy to hear that you felt it was important to get those credentials, to get the kind of the nous that would give you that credibility. I'm a firm believer in that. Once you have it, then you can kind of, hoe your own row however you like. I don't use WSET language when I'm writing things, but I have that credibility. So I'm really happy to hear that that was valuable to you. Um, it goes a long way in this conversation at the moment of how do we communicate about these subjects that people want to learn. So tell me about the Prince's Trust. How did that get involved?
Yeah, so it's now the King's Trust. So the king. So I what I realised quite quickly is that I've not run a business before. I've done did a degree in communications, and I've been an employee, but I haven't been an employer. So I literally Googled business courses, free business courses for, and the King's Trust came up, and they ran a course. You had to be under 30 years old, and they ran a 5 day young enterprise program, it's called, where you get to do it's like a business 101 training. So they do workshops in finance, in marketing, and creating a business plan, and you have to attend all of the sessions to be able to qualify from the course. And then after that, they can allocate you either a mentor, or you can apply for funding, for sponsorship, for all sorts of things. You get under their umbrella, basically. And so I thought it was a great opportunity for me to learn, and I've always been someone who's really valued mentorship, and this can see the importance of learning from people who have already done what you're trying to do. It's the whole thing, you're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with. So I tried to surround myself then with successful entrepreneurial people who've already succeeded in business, and the King's Trust was a way of being able to get in the room with those sorts of people. So the course is what I did first. Then I was allocated a mentor, and I got a Will It Work grant, which I think was £500 from them, and I did a pop up stall in a market with that. But from then, I've continued with the King's Trust, and I've done different workshops with them. And actually, I've now become an ambassador. So I'm a young ambassador with the King's Trust now, and helping them to spread their message and all the good that they do as a charity, and encouraging other young people to consider entrepreneurialism as a serious option for them.
This is so mega. This is really something that I am fully behind. I think um, getting people into these sorts of industries that aren't easy to access when you're at the beginning. You need support. You need mentors. I do some mentoring with Curious Vines. I look back at my early days in the wine industry, and I wish I had had a mentor. So it's great to know that they supported you, and now you're paying it back. I think that's really important. And creating that community of people who are young, brave, going out there and doing new things at a time where we know the world is a bit of a scary place economically. There's not a lot of security, so I think having something like the King's Trust and having a solid network of mentors like yourself and continuing workshops, it gives people some drive and some ambition. So I think that's great that you're doing that.
I think it's the biggest thing I think it gave me is confidence, and just the belief that it's worth it, and doing the work, and having the belief that it's possible. And also because you've got to learn how to manage your expectations, which is huge. Because when I first started, I had such an unrealistic expectation of what is possible. So I remember with my first Christmas, I ordered enough packaging for 300 hampers because I was convinced that I wouldn't have enough stuff for 300 hampers. Bear in mind, I launched my website on the 6th of December. So I ordered all these loads of crackers, loads of stuff. And I think I sold 40 hampers in my first Christmas, which was a really good standing start. So I'm very proud of myself for that. But I was really disappointed at the time because I thought, oh gosh, it's not worked, it's not good enough. And having a mentor just meant they were able to put a bit of perspective in, and just say, like, no, this is great, you've proved a concept, you've had strangers have bought your products, therefore there's something here, Jess. And if you don't have that, or someone to say to you, your goals are slightly too big for what you're trying to achieve right now, but just widen your goals, give yourself a bit more time, then it just is really helpful just having someone to feed that back to you. Because I think entrepreneurs, you've got to have a big vision to start something like this. Otherwise, you wouldn't bother starting. But then you've got to be able to do all the little bits of work that you need to do to be able to get to that big vision, and it does take
Well,
a lot of time.
it's going incredibly well. I'm a big stalker, so I have stalked through everything, and I'm going to list these incredible accolades you've been getting. Young Cheesemonger of the Year finalist in the World Cheese Awards in 2022, shortlisted as one of Harper's Drinks 30 Under 30 in 2023. You won the Drinks Business Social Media Campaign of the Year in 2024. IWSC Emerging Talent in Wine finalist, Food and Drink Startup of the Year finalist. You've been featured, as you said, in lots of different publications. So, how have all these awards and achievements affected your goals? Are you ordering packaging for 3,000 hampers now? What's going on?
I think I was the emerging talent for the IWC this year, so I was the winner this year, and then also the drinks business was I was the retail buyer of the year for them. I think the accolades help to give credibility. Again, it's that digital CV that people look you up, and then they can see what you're about, and it means that people take you seriously. I think it's a nice thing for your confidence. I think it's a nice thing for the hard work to be recognised. I think that it gives you opportunities to meet other people and to network and socialise, and maybe build the business and build business connections off the back of those sorts of things. I think it's just really important to go for every opportunity. So because you don't know what will be the thing that then propels your business further. So I kind of see it all as opportunities, really. I don't know if it directly affects sales. I think all of these things are good things to be able to talk about. I mean, I'm sure it helps sharing it with our network and saying that this is what we're doing, this is what we're up to. The biggest thing that affected sales was I was on Saturday Kitchen, which is a British breakfast show
I
on a
love
Saturday,
Saturday
and
Kitchen.
I
I
was on
love
there.
Helen McGinn, the wine
Yeah.
woman.
Yes. Yeah. So I was on with Helen and with Matt Tebbett, and it would have been Christmas 2023. And that propelled the business because I was able to get in front of, I mean, I think there was a couple of million people watching, I think, of that show, which is mental. And it just that sort of thing is really helpful. Um, but as I said before, you've kind of got to be doing not everything, but I kind of feel like you've got to scoop everything forward and move it all forward bit by bit. If you just focus on one avenue wholly, then I think it's really difficult to proceed and to progress. So for me, I think the reason why it's maybe been more successful is because I've got multiple income streams. I've got a social media income stream. I've got writing. I've got a shop, physical deli bar. I've got online business. I've got tasting events, private events, corporate events, and we're going to launch a subscription as well. So there's multiple channels there, and I think that's the only way that businesses, wine shops, wine bars can succeed now is being diverse, and that diversification in income. Because if one channel fails, you've got other
Exactly.
backups
Well,
as well.
it's interesting what you mentioned about the shop. It's kind of an old school move. You opened an actual physical shop in Pinner in the northeast part of London where you live. And we all know opening a shop these days is a huge risk. Statistically, 13,500 shops in the UK closed in 2024, which is a seriously depressing statistic. So it just sort of, I want to get in your head a minute. What the heck were you thinking about this? Opening a shop. I'm a wannabe shop owner myself, so I think you're very courageous, and we all want to know what spurred you on into this particular next step. A shop is a big undertaking. You opened in November 2024, so you are this person who opens your things right before Christmas. I think that's a very smart move. People are buying stuff.
Oh yeah, if it was down to me, well, the goal was to open in September 2024, but these things take
They
longer
do.
than you
Well,
want them
how's it
to.
going? We're 9 months down
Look,
the
I
road.
mean,
How's it going?
yeah, the shop, the reason that we opened a physical store, and it's a deli and it's a bar, so a lot of our revenue comes from the bar side, the kind of seat-in diners. We sell cheese boards, we sell wines by the glass. That's huge. I think if we were just a cheese shop or a wine shop, I think we would have really struggled because there's not the footfall in this area to be able to have that kind of that revenue that you'd need to be able to make the business work. We're also a very cozy, intimate space. So that also I think would be more of a challenge. But the reason that I did it, it wasn't part of the plan at all, was I was looking at going to the Spirit of Christmas and having a stall there. So I priced it all up and just thought, well, for not too much difference, I could probably open a physical space and I would have the autonomy, not autonomy, it'd just be like Mouse and Grape would be the main thing, not surrounded by thousands of other brands like at the Spirit of Christmas type events, like or specialty food festivals, that kind of thing. I also think that people understand bricks and mortar more so than an online business. um, I keep coming back to credibility, but it's a physical thing that people can tangibly see, and they can pick up wines, they can see what it's all about. And I think that was really helpful. And it kind of comes down to the core principles of what our business is, which is sharing the joy of pairing cheese and wine. Yes, you can do that online, and people have got big online business successfully there. But I think it's seeing people's happy faces, the joy of tasting and having that human to human interaction. That's a huge part of the wine industry. Like, that's why we're doing it. We're not doing it so that we could sit on our computer screens or so I can stand there and make videos after videos. I think it was really lacking that, and it's a joy to work with people. It's a joy to employ great people, passionate people who also love cheese and wine. And it's been great to bring something to my home community. There's nothing like this in and around Pinner. We've got kind of the people, it's been crying out for something like this. And the community has really stepped up, and we're busy. It's going very well, and we're looking at ways that we can expand and bring more to
That's
our customers.
fantastic. It's so good to hear. Like, such a really joyful success story. Makes my day. But one of the things that drew me to you and to Mouse and Grape is your commitment to, small artisan producers and B Corp certified wholesalers. You've got organic and vegan products, as well as, all kinds of traditional things. And you're using eco-friendly packaging. So how much impact does this sort of sustainable ethos have on your customers, do you think? Do you feel this is something that really motivates consumers to choose Mouse and Grape over other competitors?
I think it's something that you have to have as a business. I think it's a non-negotiable now. And I think that it was always a part of the beginnings of my business, because I was inspired by other businesses. And it's also, I think it's really important. It's important to do the right thing and to do the good thing. And ultimately, I'd love for Mouse and Grape to become B Corp certified, or the luxury butterfly. Again, my accreditations, can't stop collecting them. But I think it does. I think it does make a difference to the consumer, and people are really here for like alternative formats. We do canned wines as well. The packaging, having those luxury cardboard boxes, because I just think it's such a waste if everything is in. Not everyone wants a big wicker basket every time. So it just made sense to me. And I think also it's thinking about doing good again, and you can do good for the planet, do good for the people, your customers, but also the people who you work with you and work for you. And I like being surrounded by people who are looking at the industry with a bigger purpose. So that's again why I've surrounded myself with the people who I work with the most, who are one of my mentors who I spend a lot of time speaking to, is Kim from North South Wines, who I really look up to. She's amazing. And then also Ben Franks is also, I work with him within Mouse Grape. He's a strategic advisor for me, and he was one of the co-founders of the Canned Wine Company. So it's interesting, and there's so much we can do. But also it's interesting you touched on the vegan aspect as well. So we do vegan cheeses, we do non-alcoholic wines, we do something for everyone. It's like an inclusive place where we don't want anyone to be excluded. So that was also important to me.
I think that's great. I mean, I see this more and more in the wine industry. It's very important to me. I talk a lot about being 360 degrees sustainable, with your employees, with the people you're collaborating with. And it's really nice to hear that, even at this very early stage of your business, this is something that you've put a lot of emphasis on. And I think it's meaningful.
Yeah. Well, I think also it's the whole thing of start as you mean to go on. And I've always meant to be a big business, even though we're not one yet, but it's where we're heading.
Well, you've opened the door for my last question. You're young and you're doing great and things are going well, and you've created this fabulous business that's been pretty all-consuming from what I can tell over the past few years. So what have you got planned for the next 5 years? When I call you up in 2030, What are you going to be doing?
So the goal is to open more Mouse and Grapes. So physical stores. We've done really well in a small space, but I would love to do well in a very big space. So I think a variety of sizes of spaces would be really good. I'd say increasing on the events business, increasing on the e-commerce business, having a bigger team of people. I think having designated, I don't know, like marketing, accounts. I mean, obviously I've got an accountant, but a financial director would be great. I'd love to have one of those. Just having a bit more body to the business, basically, and more bodies in the business as well. I'd love to travel more with Mouse and Grape. I already do get to go on some lovely press trips, and I've been very fortunate to go away for wine and for cheese as well. I think also I'd love to have a family as well. That's a big thing for me. I want the business to be at a certain position before I can go away and do that. So that is a goal of mine. So yeah, I think it's just continuing doing what I love, which is growing this business and getting more people involved and evolving, but still within obviously cheese and wine. That's the space.
Well, thank you so much, Jess. This is a really uplifting conversation. You have such a positive energy, and next time I'm in London, I'm coming straight to Mouse and Grape.
Yeah, please do.
I will.
Please do.
I will be back in October, so I will definitely come and visit you there and eat something and drink something with you. But
yeah, you're very welcome.
We wish you all the best. I'm going to keep my eye on Mouse and Grape because it sounds like this is going to be, a big business. I can see this goal being reached. So thank you for giving us the time today.
Thank you. And don't get me wrong, it is scary. It's hard. There are days when it doesn't feel like it's going well, or when big things happen that you don't expect and you've got to pivot, and it's not easy doing it. But I think having the big vision is what you're working towards. And I think for anyone who is starting a business in the wine industry or thinking about doing it, I'd say definitely go for it. But you've got to know where you're going and believe where you're going as well, because there's not always the reality doesn't always look like that at the beginning.
Excellent advice. And at the end of the day, there's always wine and cheese on a bad day. So that's true. Well, thank you so much, and have a great summer, and congratulations again on your wedding.
Thank you so much. That's really lovely. Thank you, Cynthia. It's been so lovely to chat.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.